Hello, this is Lady Boule, and I hope that wherever you are, the day is wonderful and uncloudy. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Please hit the notification bell so you'll know when new videos are uploaded. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. If you'd like to have a topic discussed, let me know in the comments section or email me at ladyboule8596@aol.com. And I do thank you that have made suggestions on videos that you would like to have done. Thank you so much. Lately, it has come into the public square that black families have something called the talk with their sons. I know this happened in my family. I have 5 brothers, and there's probably a 14-year age difference between the oldest and the youngest. I'm in the middle, so I heard the talk several times. The reason black families have to have the talk with their sons is rooted in racism. Let's just call a spade a spade. America is and has always been a strange place for black people. And I'm talking about those of us who've been here all the time. I'm not talking about people who immigrated here 50 years ago. I'm talking about the ones whose ancestors built this country. We know our history, and we know what this country has been like for us. So let me just give a little background. And this is from my perspective, and so anybody can challenge it. From my perspective, a certain segment of the white American society has been angry at black people ever since slavery ended. The enslaved people built wealth not only for this country as a whole, but for many individual white families. Name any Fortune 500 company, and you are probably looking at a company that began during the slavery days. You'd be surprised at how many wealthy white families benefited from slavery, and that money is still making money for them. That's why we have such a serious wealth gap. They were building wealth, but we were creating that wealth. So let's move on. Slavery then was not only an economic institution, it was also a social institution. It defined black people's status, and it also defined white people's status. If you were black, you were nobody because you were a slave. If you were white, you were somebody because you were not a slave. And therein is the reason why black people have to have the talk with their sons. There are people who would like to keep black people in a box to protect what they consider their status. Let's back it up a little bit. White Americans have decided that they come from some kind of superior bloodline. And this is laughable because many of them came here as the slugs of European society. Slugs are lazy people. One definition of slugs is a habitually lazy person. And a large number of them came here as prisoners or tramps that the European governments wanted to get rid of. And I'm not making this up. I've actually studied American and European history. Those people didn't have anything in Europe. No money, no status, and the only class they came from was the low class. Europe was overcrowded. This is coming out of the Middle Ages. It was overcrowded. It was full of disease and poverty. And the governments of those European countries wanted to get rid of as many of those people as they could. And that is why they offered them free land in this country, land that belonged to somebody else. I must point out that the aristocrats of Europe did not come to the New World. They had what they needed, people who had resources, who had marketable skills, and who were decent. They didn't come here. Some may have come later to get more, but they didn't come here originally. It was the poor people, the vagabonds, the people who didn't have anything. That's who came here first. And the criminals that they wanted to get rid of. But when they get to America, what they have is white skin. And America placed a high emphasis on that skin And this was done when they brought the Africans here because the Africans were easily recognizable because of their skin tone. And so every strategy was used to hold those Africans down, to hold them into slavery, because slavery was an economic system. It was a money-making system. It really wasn't about the black people even being black so much as it was about them making money. That was an economic institution. This is what African Americans need to understand, get all of the emotion out of it. This was about money. So the ones that didn't have any money and didn't have any means of getting any money made it about skin color. So all of a sudden, white skin became important, and white people elevated themselves and decided that they were from some noble bloodlines. And as I said before, that's laughable. The only noble bloodline they'd ever seen was on the money with King George III's picture on it. And if you want to have a really good laugh over this, talk to a real British person. They can make you laugh and give you an earful about white Americans trying to be blue bloods. So what does it have to do with black people having to talk with their sons? First and foremost, in order for white Americans to keep up the fantasy that they are of some noble bloodline, they have to keep the black blood, whatever that is, out of their gene pool. So keeping black men in line is and has always been mandatory for them to keep their bloodline pure. Now that's the basis of it. Keeping black men in line so they can keep their supposed bloodline pure. And it also is an ego boost for those who really know they don't come from anywhere, but they have the white skin, so that gives them some kind of status in their minds that black people are not supposed to have. So whose job is it to keep these black men in line? Well, it was a job of all of them. In the slavery days and afterwards, all of them. Even now you see these Karens rolling up on black people. That's what that's all about. It was, in the past, the job of every white man to keep black men in line. It was to control their gene pool, but it was also to give them a sense of power and importance, and many of them abused that power. So for the purpose of protecting their sons from a system that did not respect their humanity, and also from sadistic wannabe important nobodies, the talk was a way of black people preparing their sons for an encounter with these people, giving them the chance for the best possible outcome. Because at the end of the day, black people just wanted their sons to come home alive, to live to fight another day. So what is the talk? In my home, the talk was ongoing. When we went to the downtown district of our hometown, we were told not to drink from either water fountain. When I was really young, the white and colored signs were still up. They said, don't drink from the white water fountain because white people monitor that kind of thing very closely. They were always looking for reasons to exert their authority. And then our parents would say, don't drink from the colored fountain because it was nasty. White people would spit in it, throw dirt in it, do anything that they wanted to do because they knew they could get away with it. We were taught to always say yes ma'am, no ma'am, excuse me, thank you, and please to white and black people, because black people wanted to give their own people the same respect that they gave the white people. My brothers were taught that if they were working for a white person and they came to pick them up, to sit in the back seat, especially if it was a white woman. Don't go in your house, my parents would say. Don't ask for a drink of water, even if you're thirsty. Don't ask to use the bathroom. Come home and use the bathroom. To be fair, some white people would offer water or even somewhere for them to use the bathroom. But if they didn't offer it, you didn't ask. Go to the back door was a common thing for black boys and girls. In our house, our father liked buttermilk. There was a white family up the street from us that had a cow, and they sold buttermilk at a very reasonable price. My mother would send my brother and me to buy buttermilk, and she'd say, "Now go to the back door and tell her you want a gallon of buttermilk." Well, my brother, who's a year older than me, would always go to the front door. And I'd say, "We're supposed to go to the back door." And he would say, "Come on, come on." And he'd grab my arm and he'd drag me up those front steps. The white woman would come to the door. She'd look down and see us and she'd say, "Now you little colored children, know you're supposed to go to the back door." Well, I was a crybaby, so I would start crying. But my brother was unfazed. He'd grab my hand and we'd go to the back door and get the milk. But I was upset. I would always be upset about it. Not at the white woman, but at him, because he wouldn't do what my mother had told us to do. One day when this happened, I cried all the way back home. When I got home, my father was there, and I was still crying, and I told my father what had happened, and I just knew my father was going to get this strap and whip my brother. Our father really didn't whip us. But our mother would, but our father really didn't whip us. But I thought he was going to get a whipping this time because he went to that front door and my father did not. My father told my mother, "Don't send them back there again. We'll just have the milkman to drop off milk." That was in the days when the milkman would deliver milk. But I didn't understand it at the time why my father didn't get mad at my brother. But I think I understand it better now. My father did not want us to think that that was acceptable behavior, going to somebody's back door. And so to this day, I don't go to anybody's back door. I stay away from your house. I ain't coming to no back door. But the talk is all about mannerisms. Comport yourself in a certain way in the presence of evil. That's what the talk amounts to. It's unfortunate that people think we're dumb because black people are really very wise. The old generation was anyway. And these were things that nobody taught them. That wisdom came with them on those slave ships. But what about the real talk, the one involving the police? In my family, the talk usually began when my brothers started driving. My father would sit them down and say, "Now, son, if the police stops you, cooperate. When he asks for your license, give it to him and don't say anything. Don't ask why he stopped you. Don't argue saying that you weren't speeding. Just say yes, sir, no, sir, and thank you, sir. Because he's got a stick, a gun, and the law on his side. And he'll use all of that against you, and there's nothing I can do about it. But if he does something illegal, we'll take him to court." One of my brothers actually took a police officer to court, and my brother won because the police officer was wrong. He didn't beat him, he didn't tase him, he didn't shoot him, but it was just a case of harassment on a long stretch of highway. Harassment. So the judge reprimanded the police officer, and my brother did not have to pay the fine. When the schools integrated and black boys started sneaking around with white girls, one of my brothers asked my father about a white girl that had slipped him a note. My father's advice to him was, if you can go to her house, meet her family, sit down and have a conversation with her and her family, watch television like you can with a black girl, then go ahead, make friends with her. But if you got to sneak around with her, it's not worth it. And that was the end of that. My brother didn't ever say anything else about that. These are the sorts of things that black parents would teach their children, especially their sons. Standard things that would come up no matter what. But then sometimes things would come up on the spur of the moment, and then they would have to have an immediate lesson. So the talk is really lessons in life. And somebody is not having the talk with many of these young black people these days because too much stupid stuff is happening. When things are happening to black people and nobody knows anything, when everything that happens to you is a result of racism, when nothing ever goes right for you no matter what, or somebody else is to blame for every negative thing that happens to you, then somebody didn't have the talk with you. As I said before, the purpose of the talk is to prepare you for life in America, and would probably work anywhere, but it's specifically about black people dealing with white people. In our family, the talk was about dealing with white people because that was the immediate threat. But our father talked to us about dealing with black people too, because dealing with black people can be a trip too. The talk is still relevant. It may need to be modified. Some things might need to be added, and some things might need to be taken away. But there is protocol that needs to be observed in any society. Since they lost the tribal system, our parents realized they had to create their own system for dealing with other people in society. A talk represents wisdom on the part of black parents who wanted to keep their children safe. And it did for most of us. Now there needs to be a talk now about black people dealing with other black people, because some of the things that are happening with black people now, black on black situations, some of these things are just outrageous. Learning how to live in the world with other people is always in order. There is never a time that you can do anything you want to do. Protocol is always in order. So as I end the video, I want to clarify something. In my last video on C. Dolores Tucker, I mentioned the rap group NWA. I did make clear that NWA is now considered the first gangster rap group. At the time, they were looked up as being bad boys when I was still going out there listening to music. But now they were the beginning, and we accepted it because it was considered cutting edge. But now we see that cutting edge can lead to something much more sinister and evil. So NWA was not a good representation of what I consider traditional, decent rap. Okay, everybody, thank you for listening. Subscribe, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share the video, and as always, have a great day.